Ja, einen wunderschönen guten Tag og hjertelig velkommen igjen til dere tittere og lyttere. I dag har jeg en meget spesiell gjest, og jeg er ganske så nervøs og litt spent. Intervjuen kommer til å kjøres på engelsk, og jeg har Alexander Klass som gjest, og han er utvikleren av Vortex Power. So now we are starting with English. Hello, Alex, and thank you for being here. That you're taking your time, and so I hope it will be an interesting conversation. How is the weather in Germany, actually? Do you
quite
have
bad
spring?
today. Yeah, quite bad today. We have spring here, especially in Rhineland-Palatinate, where the summer comes very early because the climate is very mild.
Yeah.
But today it's raining, not very beautiful.
So you are living in the Rhine area?
Yeah,
right? Yes.
in the Rhine area,
Yeah.
near north of Karlsruhe. Most people will know, half an hour north of Karlsruhe. Speyer is near.
Okay. So, could you please tell a bit about your background? Where did it all start with the interest for the water and, of course, the interest for developing a device like Vortex Power?
Oh, how did it all start? Yeah, many years ago, as now in 23, I'm nearly 55 years old. And I think, it was about maybe the age of 14 or so, like 40 years ago, that I came across water, and that I was always, or had always been very interested in science, physics, chemistry, biology, and so on. My father also is a physician. And I came across water because I was very interested in natural science. And what I realized up till that time in my life, like 14 years or so, when I had, my father always knew everything. When I asked him anything about nature, when we were taking a walk, about plants, about animals, or so, I could always ask him, and he would always have a perfect answer for me, a scientific answer, and it was very profound and substantial. And when I asked him things about water, he actually had to admit frankly that he hardly knew anything, and that also science doesn't know very much, that actually our knowledge about water, despite all that research that we have been doing for so many years now, is not very profound. And so that was for me, for the first time, a puzzling situation when I said, hey, I'll have to go into that. And of course, that time you didn't have internet or so, you had to go to the library, and especially in Germany, you have in Munich, where I lived, we had the library of the German Museum, which is very, very famous and has very many old books, especially old books, scientific books. Here you can find a lot about the history of science. And I found out that in old chemistry and physics books, you will find a completely different approach to water. And and then I went deeper into that, and what puzzled me most, and still does nowadays, is the anomalies of water. The fact that water always has a very strange, unexplainable behavior. And my father always used to say, yeah, well, it's strange. We don't know why water has so many anomalies, so many not explainable or hardly explainable properties. And that can be chance that nature somehow decided to have one substance out of million others that has dozens of strange, not explainable behaviors. And that it's not only just, that it is strange to find out that it is like that, but even more important, that these anomalies of water are absolutely essential for life. So that somehow God, or goddess, as I always say, when she created the cosmos, that she somehow must have decided she wants something absolutely special, and this is water, and it is female. And only because water has dozens of anomalies, always behaves in an unexpected and different way, breaking all the rules of chemistry and physics. is not just by chance, but is the absolute basic of life. If it wasn't like this, life metabolism couldn't exist. There wouldn't be a single cell living on a planet or on our planet if there wasn't water. And if water didn't break all those rules that millions of other substances keep. So this was for me the moment when I went into a deeper research of water and wanted to find out. But very soon, of course, I realized that scientific explanations are always too short. We can explain some things, of course, and we can always find out why. For instance, why the molecules or the atoms behave like this, why the HO molecules have these and that properties, but it's actually never an explanation. It's just, okay, it's a description. Water behaves like that. But no one can actually explain why does water always behave so strange, so unexpected, so completely different from all other substances. There might be other substances that have maybe one exception, one anomaly, or maybe two, but you will hardly find a substance that has more than one anomaly. But water has dozens. How possible?
How many do you know? How many anomalies water has?
Well, that time when I went into it, it was not more than maybe 30 or 40 known, but over the years I have found out more, and I think we are now beyond 70 or so.
But 70,
anomalies.
wow.
Yeah, but I'm not actually, unfortunately, I don't have the time to go into that deeper and to keep up with that all the time. And of course, the counting of those anomalies is always a bit arbitrary. Sometimes, say, you have let's say two properties that actually have one reason, but you can treat it as one anomaly or as two. So yeah, it's arbitrary, but it's not so important if it's now 50 or 70 or 100. It's everything beyond one anomaly is absolutely striking in chemistry. So even if it was just 3 or 4, it would be striking already and unexplainable. But dozens of them is definitely a wonder.
Yeah. You mentioned that the water is feminine, it's like, and I remember when we had the talk back in time, you said that to develop a device like the Vortex power, you need to activate in a way the feminine side inside of you. Could you please explain a bit? Isn't it all about technique?
It is all about techniques and science, of course, but only as a basis.
Yeah.
Of course, you want to guarantee that the fluid mechanics is working properly, that you don't get, for instance, when you have a vortex chamber and you have water streaming in at a high speed, you might get problems like cavitation or so, which might cause bad effects on the water. So this is, of course, scientific. You have to have science as a basic, but not more. And it's not more than one layer, one underlying layer, but there may be dozens ahead, which are also important. For instance, the informatic aspect of water, which was when I started some 30, 40 years ago, was absolutely it was esoteric. It was spiritual stuff. It was laughed at widely by scientists that water might carry information patterns and have influence on the human body or whatever. And now over the last especially the last 10, 15 years or so, were very important, because nowadays even scientists, hardcore scientists, change actually to our side and say, yeah, well, definitely even highly diluted solutions like for instance a homeopathic remedy or so do have can carry information, and we can measure those frequencies and all that stuff. When I was young, I was only laughed at, and everybody said, yeah, you are mad. How can you claim these things? Also, there were also at that time there were already some scientists saying it, but of course it was a minority. And now even more and more scientists realize, yeah, it is indeed like that, and the energetic effects are important. The non-matter, the subtle influences are very important, and often you have two samples of water having absolutely the same chemical analysis and containing of the same substances, but one is rather toxic or making you ill, and another one is like healing water.
Yeah.
And the only way to find out is even leave science behind sometimes and say, okay, we cannot explain everything. School science cannot explain everything, but let's see if we can find other things in water, frequencies and all that stuff. Or sometimes it's even just, yeah, we'll have to feel it. And if hundreds or thousands of customers say, hey, I don't know why this thing works, but when I drink the water, I feel better, I feel healthy, then I accept it, even if it's not scientifically proven.
Yeah. So as I said in the beginning in Norwegian, you are the developer of the Vortex Power. So how exactly was your approach to developing the Vortex? I mean, you know, I think about this to activate the feminine side in you. Because it's so interesting for me, so I really would like to know more about it. How was your approach to developing this little thing? It's not your first, you know.
Yeah, it was not my
No, it's
first
not
product. I developed
you know.
a couple of water whirlers before, indeed, for other companies, and I built I don't know how many dozens of prototypes, tested different materials, different forms of vortex chambers and all that stuff. I mean, I came to vortex technology quite early, and it was quite soon I realized that vortex technology is actually the thing to go with. Although I, of course, covered other things like information technology and all that stuff, radionics and whatever is out there, and of course science, others like changing the pH value or the redox potential and all that stuff, or adding hydrogen or whatever. These things are, as I say, it's the material basis. You can use it, but what is actually very charming is that with vortex technology, or with these subtle fine matter aspects, when you cover them, you don't need to take too much care for the chemistry and the physics of the water, because when you bring the water in a how would you say, in a healthy, sane state again, back, if you revitalize it and make it so that it is actually much more fitting for metabolism by vortex technology, or by these subtle effects, then toxic substances don't disturb so much and don't have that terrible effect anymore. And when I started, of course, in the beginning, it was rather scientific and fluid mechanics and all that stuff, and getting more oxygen into water or other gases like carbon dioxide or so. And then I realized that the capacity of the water to flow, especially to flow in very small capillaries, like in our blood, for instance, can be optimized and improved by changing its structure, changing the arrangement of the hydrogen molecules by means of vortex technology, by intensively moving water at high speeds in small chambers. And so the approach was, of course, scientific as always in the beginning, but what I had realized and what made me then come out with these new products was that the geometry of the vortex chamber doesn't only play a role for the fluid mechanics. It should be fitting the fluid mechanics and not disturb and not cause cavitation or other bad effects, but the size of a vortex chamber causes certain, like any material object that you have, it has hollow resonances. It has a certain how do you say, a certain size. For instance, the height of the vortex chamber, the diameter of the vortex chamber, the curve radiuses when it is curved, when it's not cylindrical, and so on. Every number that you somehow built inside a vortex chamber has a certain effect. And I built, I don't know how many prototypes to find out about these numbers. And of course, what had always going on, or what had always been very interesting for me, is numbers. I had found out that there are certain numbers in nature that occur always again, and you always wonder why numbers like 2.73, for instance, or 273 appear so often in chemistry and physics, and you wonder how always these numbers, or the number 19 or so, or number 81, and there are some numbers, and 7 and 3. There are some numbers that occur very often in nature, and then I said, well, okay, then let's build a vortex chamber, and let's see what happens when you make it, let's say 6.5 millimeters or 7 or 7.3 millimeters, and then see if it makes a change. Not a change according, not because it has another fluid mechanic. It might have the same shape, just be a bit larger or a bit smaller, but just using a certain number, let's say 7 millimeters, makes a difference. And I wondered, and I did more research about that, but in the end I always found that what people had said centuries, millennia ago about numbers, for instance, the old Pythagoreans or so, what they had found out about numbers, or the Vedian scripts and so on, what they said about the Holy Three or Holy Seven and things like that, it is true, and it can be installed somehow in a subtle way in water when you use certain numbers, certain curve radiuses, certain diameters, whatever. And yeah, over the years, I gained a profound knowledge of all the numbers and how they somehow, over frequencies and all that stuff, work together and make either a harmonic kind of like a sound. Several sounds can be harmonic, and you say, oh, it sounds fine. Or they might be disharmonic, disturbing, and you won't like the music or the sound. And in a similar way, you can also arrange the hollow resonances that you have, the geometry of the vortex chamber to values that fit those arrangements that you would want to have, and they are harmonic, and then you will get a much better water, although the fluid mechanic doesn't change very much. And it does indeed make a difference if a vortex chamber has, let's say, 10 millimeters in diameter, or 9.8 or 10.3. It makes a huge difference, not from the physical effects, but from the subtle effects that people feel and sense.
Right. Yeah. So you're talking about numbers, and I was just thinking about, is it about the fractals or Fibonacci or the golden ratio? Because it's this we found out in the nature, right? It's like the nature's mathematic, or
it is indeed nature's mathematics, but I always say the Fibonacci numbers to me have something like a masculine approach. Actually, they are like bricks that you put together, like 1 + 2, 1 + 2 makes 3, and so on. It's like it's a very male approach to nature. And I found out that certain other numbers, based actually on the 7 and 12 and 19 and so on, also make a row of numbers which are very important, which I use, but I also do use others that directly come from geometry. For instance, the number 273 or 2.73 and so on, it's actually 4 divided by pi, the number pi, or pi, as we say. And this is also very important for me. And some others like 80, 81 or so. I use certain numbers here. And it's actually based on empirical knowledge, but triggered by ancient writings, ancient philosophies, and of course by science. When you find out that, for instance, the periodic table of elements knows 81 stable elements, not decaying, radioactively decaying elements, that cannot be chance, that it's just 81, for instance. And so these numbers I do use. But of course, how I do it exactly is my secret, and will remain my secret, because first of all, it's of course because I have companies, especially the Vortex power company, that want to sell the products and don't want plagiates here. We also have to use some tricks, so it's not so easy just to say, okay, let's take 81 millimeters and then we build another vortex chamber. There are some tricks, especially when it comes to curve radiuses or so. It's based on these numbers, and in the end, it is a very old knowledge, as I told you, that is the knowledge of the female tree of life, also, which how I call it. So it's actually a knowledge many years old, but also covered by modern science, and that's so fascinating for me, that actually religion and science, there's no dichotomy of either this or that. Both can be possible when you use water as the Mercurius, as the antenna, or the link between the material world and the subtle world.
Yeah,
right. Water is actually perfect for that.
Yeah. I guess you read the work of Victor Schauberger. So, and I know you're kind. Wilfried Hachenay was kind of a mentor for you, He is not really known, actually. And I don't know. I think even he went to Norway once, and I think he was here to giving lectures.
He went to Norway once because there was a couple of Schauberger researchers in Norway also, Sweden and Denmark. So Scandinavia is also, I think Scandinavia is or has been for many years a bit advanced and a bit let's say ahead in time when it comes to realizing that water has these subtle effects, as especially Victor Schauberger and his son and grandson also say and found out.
Especially in the south of Sweden, I think there was a huge interest of So, but you did read all the Victor Schauberger stuff. Is there something? Because when he is describing the water, the nature, it's like he's writing about, like a human being, water. So this is just so fascinating. And is this where you get your inspiration as well? Got your inspiration as well from Schauberger and Hachenay? Maybe you could tell a bit about Hachenay, because I just read one book, and it's the same when you read Hachenay, it's like you're just diving into a strange, fantastic world.
It's indeed like a different world.
It's a different world.
Wilfried Hachenay was indeed very, very fascinating. I had the chance that I could meet him many times, because his partner Christiane Polaszek, who wrote his books, used to live not far from Munich, from my place, and I could just visit him whenever he came to her, or when he was giving lectures in the south of Germany also. And I'm also happen to have quite a lot of lectures that were never published from him. Also, somewhere in one of my binders I have, or two, I think it is, a couple of lectures and also audio files that we recorded that time when he was giving lectures, and many of it is not published yet. Indeed, Wilfried Hachenay was you could say he had a kind of anthroposophical approach to water, and scientifically he was also an engineer and a physician, and he also, like me, I would say, had this profound knowledge that there is no gap between the spiritual and the material world. It's actually one, it's the same, and water is the element that connects all those effects. Water is the holistic thing, the bridge between those two worlds. And there are some quotations known from Wilfried Hachenay that also stress that fact, that actually water is the Mercurius, is the or in the Nordic mythology, the Rattatösker, the little squirrel that can climb the tree of life and visit all the different worlds or layers of consciousness, and is actually the one that can not only can, that constantly is in all worlds and links all them and brings information from one to the other and back, and unites the whole thing. Actually, water is what makes the tree of life a tree, so that it is really somehow combined, or not just say, okay, here we have the world of the gods, or of some spiritual entities, or our soul, or whatever, our psyche, and so on, and here we have the material world, and there's nothing in between. There are several layers, and we can actually feel and sense them, and even treat them in a certain way, and we can even produce waters or vortex chambers that produce water that then trigger different layers of consciousness, and we can find out that it is in that true what Rudolf Steiner had said. And Rudolf Steiner once said, I think it was in 1922, nearly more than 100 years ago, he said that water comes upon Earth in a quicksilvery mercurial state. He said water comes upon Earth and brings all the other down when it becomes quicksilver, when it becomes mercury, not in a chemical way, mercury, of course, but in a physical way. And it was very funny, and that was also a point that had been very important to Wilfried Hachenay, to find out that Linus Pauling, the famous chemist and double Nobel Prize winner, that he had also been doing research about water. He had sent balloons to the outer atmosphere, to high up in the ionosphere, even up to nearly 150 kilometers in height, and brought samples of water back from these high altitudes beyond 81 kilometers, and he found out that this water had completely different properties, behaved chemically, physically completely different from normal tap water that he had in his office. And he found out that indeed it formed very little droplets like mercury does, and that it became like kind of hyperfluid, also like mercury. And that in the end, that he could prove with that Linus Pauling proved that Rudolf Steiner had been right, saying that the water comes down from sky, from the heavens, and bringing back, or bringing to us the spiritual information, or high information, by making it nearly like mercury, or behaving like mercury.
Wow, this is so fascinating to
indeed,
listen to this. And Wilfried Hachenay, he had a connection to Steiner, is it right? When he was little?
He had personally known him. Even he told me once. He says it was like an uncle for him, and he had been sitting on his lap back when he was young. I think so.
Interesting. So you're talking about the physical and the chemistry, and I think, or I realize, when I'm talking to people, that they are just focused on what's in the water, like the chemistry in a way. So, and it's just focus on that. So, and I think it's important, and the time is right now that we need to focus more on the motion, because life is motion, is what you are telling about all this. So, and in a living water, why the vortex is giving living water, the vortex power, the device. What is it about this living water? Could you go a bit more deeper in it? It's not all about the chemical thing, but it's more like about the physical thing, right?
It is indeed, not a chemical thing, because you can have the same water, two samples of the same water, and one is vivid, and the other one is dead. If you use,
what is that? What is that water?
What is that? Water.
What's coming out of the tap water, for example, is dead. Or all the bottles.
Unfortunately, most time you could say it's nearly dead. Of course, it depends on the time, or the how many meters it went in tubes or not.
And the pressure, of course.
Yeah, the pressure.
Yeah.
We once lived in a little village far out in somewhere in the forest, and we had a source, a fountain of water, not even 100 meters from the place where we lived, and the water just was actually decontaminated, biologically decontaminated by ultraviolet radiation, a little device, and then it came into the tubes immediately. So it was actually a very, very little water work, and the water was of famous quality. Whereas when you live in, let's say, in a city like Berlin or Stuttgart or so, where the water comes, especially for instance in Stuttgart, it comes from more than 100 kilometers from the Bodensee, or from Ulm. So when it has more than 100 kilometers in tubes, then of course the physical quality is not very good anymore. It's dead. Yeah, it might be still clean, or it may have been cleaned before. But then the physical qualities is not very good. What do I mean by that? The arrangement of the water molecules plays an important role. We know that the water molecules arrange according to their charge. The water molecules have a plus pole and a minus pole. If you want to put it exactly, they have two plus poles and two minus poles, but it's not so important. And these plus and minus poles attract each other. So several hydrogen molecules can attract each other and form so-called clusters. And the less you move the water and the more pressure you give on the water, the larger these clusters are going to build up over the time. Whereas when you move water at high speeds, but move it harmonically, not just spraying it out with a lot of power by some weird process, it has to move in a harmonical way. And this is, of course, a vortex movement, because what is so special about a vortex is when a vortex starts slowly at the center, at the periphery, and moves faster and faster and faster when it comes into the center. And what is so special about this flow is that it is highly ordered, a highly ordered state of water. The water molecules have time to move in such a way that the clusters are being destroyed. That single water molecules are taken out of the clusters more and more, so that the cluster size is being reduced when you let water flow in a harmonic vortex-like manner, not just spraying it out or pushing it somewhere against the wall, or just creating droplets or so, as we do when we do normal spraying or so. And when you let the water move in that natural way, it's the way nature moves water. When you look at just a single drop that runs from the window or so, a drop of rain, it will never move. Even the window is absolutely upright. It will always move in a certain unpredictable way. You will never know when is the drop going to turn left or right. And in the same way, when you turn open your tap, and you have the water running out. First, it is in the laminar flow, but then when you see after some centimeters or so, it's going to turn into a turbulent flow, and you will never know where exactly and when will occur this point of falling into turbulence, and will it move right, left, where will it move? You have no chance to predict it, not even to calculate it, and bringing water into this natural vortex-like streaming reduces the cluster size. And that is, of course, very important, because first of all, the capability of the water to dissolve other substances rises when you destroy the clusters. When you have smaller clusters, you have a higher solving capability of the water, which everyone knows, because when you heat up water, you also destroy the clusters. But unfortunately, in a chaotic manner, when you just heat up, you just bring in movement, but chaotically, but still you destroy the clusters. And hot water dissolves much better. When you want to clean your laundry or whatever, you will use hot water, because hot water dissolves better. But you can, with Vortex technology, bring water in a state of having smaller clusters without heating it up, destroying the clusters, making them smaller, and having the higher solving capability of water, the solving capacity of water, without heating it up, and so that you can also drink it. And this advanced state of order in water, or less chaos in water, and still having the solving capacity, makes it a better water for drinking, for metabolism. Because what it does in our body is always transport other substances. It's the most important thing water does: transport other substances. It has to take them up and bring them from the guts into the blood or the lymph or wherever. So the most important task of water is transporting, taking up, and dissolving. And when I can improve its solving capacity by Vortex technology, of course, I could drink 100 degrees hot water also, but no one would want to do that. Vortex technology is the way to go.
Yeah, of course. And when you're talking about this vortex technology and warming or drinking hot water, to heat up the water, it's the explosion, you know, is it right? Explosion energy in a way, because it's and the vortex technology is about the implosion. And this is what when I if I'm right, so it's implosion is all about nature. It's because it's what nature is doing, you know, all energy. So that's the reason why I think it's better to drink vortex water with this implosion.
Yeah, it's like Victor Schauberger said, he called it implosion technology.
Or levitation,
right?
Yeah.
Levitation is the word, or later on colloidation is the word that Wilfried Hachenay used. You will have to explain that, but first of all, I would say that Schauberger was indeed right, claiming that pressure, especially for water, is not good. Water has to flow in a laminar, possibly non-turbulent, not pressing way. And the more you give it the chance to move slowly, or at least in an ordered way, the better it is. Of course, when you want to bring all that together in a process that only takes a second or fractals of a second, and want to have something that you screw to the tap and not a device that can run for several minutes or so, as Wilfried Hachenay built, he built those machines where the water was running. The first machines had 273 seconds was the optimum. 4.5 minutes.
That's the numbers,
He wondered when I said, when he said, the best is after 4.5 minutes, and I calculated, said, 273 seconds. And then, you and your numbers.
Your numbers.
But indeed, it was after 4.5 minutes, it was perfect. When you don't want to build a machine and an engine and a propeller and all that stuff, and have a device that does most possible, has a great effect on water within fractals of a second, and without using current and energy and whatever, then you will have to of course go to pressure, to use the pressure that you have in your tube, but still make the water flow in a laminar, very ordered way, which is of course not easy, because when you just put it in some kind of let's say, if you just spray it somehow and bring it to high speeds, as it is done when you use water for spraying or for gardening, or for watering in the garden or so, it's not very good for the water. So you will have indeed to use a few tricks and have a very sophisticated geometry if you want to avoid negative effects. If you compress everything into a very small moment of time and a small area, but it is possible. Of course, I'm actually I'm a friend of the old levitation technology of Wilfried Hachenay, because of course the amount of energy that you can bring into water is larger when you have more time and space and have an engine and all that stuff. But I always say we are not bad with our small vortex chambers, as you would maintain as well. I think. Huh?
It's all about the flow. It's all about motion, of course, and
Yeah.
of course you can have it with you. This little device. I have it always with me when I'm on the road.
Me too.
So, yeah, of course. What's important, or it was important for you to find the right material for this little device.
Yeah, indeed.
Can you tell about a
yeah.
bit why is it so important to have the right material?
Yeah. You have the problem when you clean the water from negative influences, as we do with Vortex technology, because we destroy the clusters, and the clusters are the carriers of these frequency patterns, of this information,
like the brain
in water,
in a way, the mind. Yeah.
And when you clean water with a Vortex process, it is like a sponge that takes up water. It is like a sponge that takes up new information the very instant it comes out of the vortex chamber, or already in the vortex chamber. There's a certain point at the top of the vortex chamber where the water comes into this, comes from the water, undergoes this change from pressing from explosive technology and falls into the vacuum of the vortex. Yeah, you know that the vortex chamber draws in air actively. Yeah, it creates a vacuum. That's why we call it implosion technology. Although we have a completely different construction than Schauberger suggested, and different materials and all this stuff, but still, Schauberger it is in a way Schauberger technology, because it is using vacuum energy, and it draws in air and falls into a vacuum, and then the water takes up energy, new information from everything that it gets in contact with. So when you have your mobile lying beside it, or if you have a bad material, or anything will have an influence, the first thing that the water comes in contact with has a very large influence on water. When you clean it, it will take any information up. And that can ruin the whole thing, of course. So then very, very soon we came to the point to say we need special materials. So the first Vortex devices that we had built were with bronze or brass, or pure copper. And then we tried to cover the materials with gold, with silver, or we tried titanium and others. Of course, we always tried stainless steel, but stainless steel always had bad effects. And then I tried to find out why is stainless steel so bad? And I've soon found out, when you take ordinary steel, which is of course not stainless, then you get a perfect water. I built prototypes. I once got a piece of ordinary iron from an old transformator, just a piece of iron, and I went to my garage and made a prototype and built it, and it was a perfect water because it was pure iron, without chromium, without nickel, without all these elements that you have inside. And of course, the thing would rust within a few hours, even when you had it on the faucet. And my wife was not very fond when she saw it, but the water was perfect. And then I found out, it is. Of course, the chemical substances play a role, but also the geometry of the iron. Iron has a structure that is actually very, very similar to water structure, and a very irregular structure. If you look at a black and white picture, let's say an electron microscopic picture of iron, and if you could see the water clusters, which we can't because there's no device that can photograph water clusters, but those would actually, you wouldn't see a difference. The structure of iron is very much like the structure of water. And the language also tells us, because in German, ice, and Eisen, ferrum, iron.
Also ice, in Norwegian, ease.
In Munich, we have the Isar, the ice river. And the language also tells us that there's a connection between iron and water, and a great similarity.
Yeah.
And when you look at those old chemistry books, as I told you, in the German museum,
Mhm.
for instance, this old Römp lexicon der Chemie is a very famous, it's like the Bible for the chemists. And if you look at an old one from like 1920 or
Mhm.
22 or so, you will find that they say indeed in the headline or in the subtitle, that actually water is like liquid iron, or that iron is like
Wow.
solid water. Yeah.
Wow.
And
Never heard about it.
yeah, strange.
Fantastic.
Tachner told me once, and
Okay.
I checked it indeed, and I found it in the library of the German Museum.
Wow.
And the so the structure plays an important role. So when you put nickel into an iron substance, if you say for stainless steel, you usually have chromium. You have like 17, 18, 19% of chromium or so. And then you have some percent nickel.
Mhm.
Chromium doesn't change the structure of the iron very much. So chromium doesn't disturb. It still remains a ferritic structure, as we say. It's the typical iron structure remains. That is why it's called ferritic structure. But when you put in nickel and some other elements, then you will change the structure, and then it is called I'm sorry, what is it in English? Austenitic structure.
Okay.
Yeah, that's this A austenite is also when sometimes you call stainless steel V2A or V4A steel. That's because Krupp at the time built those steels. It's actually the A is actually austenite. So when you put nickel into it, you will get a completely different structure with the atoms will arrange in a different way, and then the whole resonancy and everything will change in water, and that made the negative effect. So when we used ordinary nickel steel, chrome nickel steel, we got bad effects. Although we had the same vortex chambers like we built in copper, in bronze or whatever. And then I had to find a steel that was highly corrosion resistant, but not having nickel, which is everybody first said no, impossible. But I don't like impossibles, you know. Then I found and I tested several steels not using nickel, and then in the end we did indeed find a nickel-free steel that is corrosion resistant enough. It's just as good as the ordinary AISI 316, even beyond. So that's good enough. Like you make pots out of it, or pans, or silverware, and that stuff. So it's good enough, and it's completely ferritic. It has this typical iron structure, and it doesn't disturb. Neither the nickel as such disturbs, neither can it change the chemical structure of the iron. And that's what we use in the Vortex Power, and only in the Vortex Power. It's the only company that may use it, and no one else is allowed to use it. And they have it produced in a steel in a furnace in Scandinavia.
Sweden. In Sweden, right? Yeah. Wow, this is just fascinating. You know, the time. Wow. Last last question, or you know, the factory it's in Switzerland, right? Because of course people are telling me, why is this so expensive? But I don't think it's expensive if you understand, you know, the wholeness about it. But could you just tell a bit about the factory and you know, it is expensive to produce it, right?
It is indeed expensive to produce it. First of all, because the steel is very special, and it's not easy to machine it. It's a CNC lathe process that takes a very long time, and some other treatments afterwards, surface treatments and that stuff. So we have we need highly modern 5-axis CNC lathe machines that are very expensive machines that cost nearly $1 million or so, and when they run, you know, every minute costs so many euros or Swiss francs, and when you have the very long time for for machining, you will of course come to a high price. I mean, you can always look at a product and say, okay, it looks like a little aerator. It's not much more. Aerator costs €5, so why I'm supposed to pay 500-600? But you can also look at the product and say, hey, what do I get for it? What is the value for me? And you buy that product once, and it can last for 50 years. When did we start with Vortex Power? In
2012 or 11 or 12?
Something like that. So far, there's not a single Vortex device that came back for being oxidized or having any failure. It will last for 50 years. If you don't, what do you want to do? I mean, of course, you can ruin the thread if you throw it on the floor, but everything else, a few scratches won't hurt it. So it can last for the whole life. Your grandchildren will use it.
Of course,
and you will never have to buy any bottle, of course. So if you calculate that, it could cost thousands of euros and wouldn't be expensive.
And your health, it's just I just realized by my own, my health is much better. When I started drinking, and I think it was in 2017. So it's just amazing,
that's how I develop products. They are supposed to stand the test of eternity. I hate these products that you just buy and throw them. If I do something, I very precisely think what I'm doing and how long is the whole thing going to take, because you have a certain ecological impact. Of course, you have. Okay, in our case, it's very clean because it is produced not in an ordinary how do you say, exhaust furnace with a lot of carbon dioxide. It's melted from scrap from ore in a completely in a clean inductive process, in an inductive oven that only produces 5 tons, not 100 tons or so in the production company. And they even produce the current with solar energy. I'm quite happy to see. And it's produced very clean. It's produced from scrap mostly, and it is perfect material that will last for 50 years. So what do you want more? And of course, yes, the machining is expensive, of course, in Switzerland even more. But I don't know how to develop products in the beginning. I also did the quality control and everything. Usually I do that for companies. And when I did the quality control for, I think, 1 or 2 years, I always checked the results, and I looked into them and did measurements and everything. And there was not a single one that was somehow not perfect. We only got, I don't know how many thousand perfect products. So that one day I said, hey, what am I supposed to go to Switzerland and make quality control here? I'm going to stay in Germany. Those guys, they may charge a few euros more or francs, but they produce perfect quality.
That's important.
Important.
It's just amazing. It's an amazing world to dive into, to listen to you. It's just a lot to digest. No, it's not sorry, but I think it's the time is now we need to hear about this, because it's not about the water, but it's about understanding nature and everything and what we are doing to nature. So it's really important that we are starting now. I think so. It's even though it's too late, but so that's the reason why
it's never too late.
No, it's never too late
to do the good things.
No, of course not.
I know what you mean.
But so that's the reason why I'm so happy to have found you and can be a part of Vortex Power here in Scandinavia, and get the information out to the people. Okay, Alex, I think this
is a compliment I may give back, because I'm very happy that I found you, also that you came to us, and I absolutely cherish the way you approach water, and the way you do your own research and read and constantly inform yourself and really learn about water and life and all these things. And it's really amazing, because then it can really make an even more profound change. Water changes us, and that is so important. And this water really changed your life, didn't it?
Yeah,
and,
it did.
Yeah.
Totally.
And that's what everybody should be like you. But of course, not everybody will be. But if only a little bit of that light may shine out, and people realize, hey, she found something. Usually, you ask yourself, why is someone spending his whole life for water. Or research or whatever? How can you build hundreds of prototypes just to build the best vortex chamber? Are you mad? Why do you do these things? But I think you can understand, and I hope our listeners and the public out there soon will realize that we don't do these things because we are mad guys, but we do these things for a very, very profound and not only material but spiritual reason. And
first and foremost,
if we manage to transport this information out into the world, I think we have done a great thing.
This is just amazing. It's just my life just changed when I came over, you guys, especially you. So just it is it's not, as I said, it's not only about water, it's about understanding nature and a spiritual thing, to approach more the spiritual world, actually. The spiritual nature world.
And about discovering that God is female.
Yes, right. This is and you just have activated, of course, your female spirit. Yes, of course. Okay, Alex, I really thank you so much for being on, for taking your time, and hopefully I will meet you again. But I know you are very busy man, and
always something to do.
Of course. Okay, so I wish you all the best, and
so to you.
Until next time. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.